she was doing it, so it's very useful for us to get that sort of perspective. So next, June.
Yeah, thank you. So as I say, I'm in Council of Nick Island. I represent Crossways Ward, which is the first ward to the west, east of Weymouth. I live in Osmington, some of you may know that. And what I'm doing, I'm going around every single town council in Dorset Council's area. There's 22 of them, it seems. There's 2 more than I thought there were. And I'm doing it every 6 months. I'm mainly doing it to get feedback from councillors, to take back what's going well, what isn't going well, and also there's this perception there's a democratic deficit after, so you would have been East Dorset District Council here, I guess, that there's some sort of gap between towns and parishes. I'm not sure there is, but I'm going around to address that. And we're also doing things as a council in terms of community engagement, trying to do asset transfers, double devolution and all that sort of stuff. So very briefly, because I know I haven't got much time, we've been in power for a year now. I'll try not to say anything about my fellow councillors, 3 of them in the room, so you'll pull me up if I say something, especially with the local plan. So we obviously we took power last year. We had a quite detailed manifesto, and one of the really cool things was when we took power, it turns out the officers knew our manifesto better than we did. I think it's probably fair to say. Because they've been shared it through the Chief Exec back in December previous year. And so they were ahead of the game in creating a new council plan. So we finally passed that in December last year. And it has 4 main priorities. And that doesn't mean there aren't other priorities or business as usual aren't going on. Because that's highways are still doing highway stuff, all that sort of stuff is going on. But we focused on 4 things, one of which is communities for all, which is essentially from birth to death. And adults and children's services, and community services as well. Addressing the climate emergency, we declared a nature emergency, first meeting with Dorset Council, second term in July, providing quality affordable housing. Affordable is the key word there. I know you've got lots of housing building going on around here. And we can talk about that briefly, but the problem we get and what we were getting on the doorstep is affordable housing. Our children get to go to university. Most of our generation probably didn't, and it was a rare thing. Now it's expected. The problem we have as a community in Dorset is that many of our children go to university, don't come back. It's the reality because they can't find the jobs and they can't afford to live here. So addressing that is a priority. It's a bit chicken and egg really, but I think jobs come first, and then you can build the housing. Which brings you on to the 4th priority, which is growing our economy. And we're doing lots of work. I could go into quite a bit of detail on what we're doing, but it's trying to address the opportunities. And I think it's probably fair to say some of the things we're focused on now weren't a focus for the previous administration. I don't want to be political, but they had the job of setting up the council, trying to make it safe and legal, and obviously they had COVID built in. But we're doing things differently, and we think we're already making a difference. And I guess this year and the next will probably make or break us, to be fair. We have a challenge to do, and 2029 is the next election, so we've got a bit of time. And it's a bit like Labour, and they've got a bit of time. Unfortunately, they're not doing very well, but we'll park that. And so one of the things we've also done is create a new set of values. You wouldn't believe how long it takes to create a set of values. Lots of people get involved. But they're actually really key because it's not just how we present ourselves externally, it's also how our officers behave. And it's probably fair to say that Dorset Council hasn't functioned as well as it could do, and still doesn't, and we need to change that. One of my favourite phrases, I do a Dorset welcome every 3 months to people who are new to the council, so new employees. And I try to get across in my 15-20 minutes I have with them that we are one council. If you look at, I've got a badge on, there you go. It says Dorset Council on it. It doesn't say planning. It doesn't say children. It doesn't say adults. Talk to each other, work together, and that way we can represent our residents better and do the job we're here. Bottom line is Dorset Council wouldn't exist if we didn't have residents to serve, and I think sometimes officers need to be reminded of that. Certainly in some departments. So our values are curiosity, respect, openness, accountability, and together. The way they're set out on Dorset Council's paper is basically in a different order, and they come out as ROTAC, which isn't a great word to remember. So all the effort we put into the values, we didn't think about coming up with something that's easy to remember. Actor or Croat are the two words I use to remember what they are. But they're really key. I'm really trying to change, and Shane and Will, all our councillors, in fact, are trying to change the behaviour of officers to be a bit more savvy, I think is probably the word, a bit more accountable. And curiosity is my favourite word in this, because it means you're thinking outside your little silo, your box or whatever. And bottom line is, the people who are doing the job probably know how to do the job best. That doesn't necessarily doing it the way you've done it before. So we're trying to change the behaviour. And I'm trying to get rid of people using the phrase "their council," because if anybody ever uses the phrase "their council," and it will apply to you as well, it's never in a good way. Generally it means you've done something wrong or we're not very happy with you. So I'm trying to get away from that culture. So anything you do, think what the public wants, not what the council would do. I'll briefly touch on the local plan, because that's probably relevant for the Shane's in the room as well. So the previous administration didn't manage to follow through on the promise of a local plan in 2023. I'm not going to be political, lots of things happened. I think they found it too difficult in the end, and I think that's one of the realities. We've had to restart it from scratch. We have a deadline, which we're desperately trying to keep to, and it can't possibly slip, can it, Shane, of December 26, which sounds a long way off. It's not. It's I don't know where we are. I mean, it's 21 months away. It's not that far. And then it'll go to the inspector, and hopefully we'll have a new local plan, sort of Aprilish, fingers crossed. So this sort of time in 27. So that's 2 years' time. Our housing numbers. You probably know that Labour government have increased our housing target numbers. They're already out there. They're already law essentially. We don't have to abide with them until October, because we've managed to fix our, it's a bit like a fixed rate mortgage stuff. Then we've embedded our 5-year housing supply until October, but our 5-year housing supply is 1,700 and something, and it's going up to 3,300 and something. So once we get to October, everything falls off the cliff. We can't meet our supply, and that interim period between October and whenever we get our new local plan, I wouldn't say limited, but we're less able to enforce the current local plans, and they're arguably out of date, or they are out of date and not fit for purpose anyway. So you might see a lot of speculative planning. You obviously have got a lot of building going on around here. As part of the local plan process, we have to submit a local plan that represents those numbers. So 3,300 was changed every year for a period of 20-ish years. I think I'm looking at Shane. But the reality is, those numbers they don't mean that the houses will be built. Some of them will be, but we have about 11,000 houses with planning permission which builders aren't currently building. In my own ward, there's about 140 at one site, 500 at another site, which have had planning permission since about 2020, and they haven't been built yet. So they may get built. You're running out of space, that's a suggestion. And it's one of the interesting things that in my ward, there's a housing estate which is just about to be finished, 49 houses, and a planning application has gone in for the field next to it for another 150. And the most noise, the people who are complaining most are the people who are in the brand new estate, because they're all saying, well, when we bought this, we didn't realise there was going to be housing next door. And you can iterate back, because that's the way it works. Most of the other people at Crossways are complaining about it. But yeah, there's always going to be building, and we do need building, and we need houses for our children that they can afford. I'll briefly touch on QE Leisure Centre. I spoke to Roy over there before. Just to reiterate, Will knows this, and Shane and David know this, and Julie knows this. We don't own anything on that site. It's owned by the academy. Dorset County Council built that school at great expense, and then had to give it away because the government forced us to. It became an academy. We pulled out because it was costing us lots of money. We gave them some 800k with change to basically repair various things. They asked for an extension of they asked for an extension of a year. I gave them 6 months, which runs out in September. We spent some of that money already in redoing the 3G pitches and that sort of stuff. The majority of the rest of it has to be spent on the swimming pool. They've been told in no uncertain terms that A, you're not going to get an extension, and if they don't spend it on the swimming pool, we're going to take the money back. So they're on a deadline. I think it's probably better than leaving the chance that the swimming pool will get fixed and it will be reopened. We are getting a lot of pressure, but I can't guarantee it because it's out of our hands. But that's the situation with QE. And I'll probably stop there. I could talk about a lot of things, but give you some time before Joe tells me to go home.
Well, thanks very much, Nick. Does people get any questions or to us? Yes, Councillor Ian. Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Nick. Nick, it's a very mundane question, really, but I walk my dog a lot, particularly in the winter. I walk my dog a lot, particularly in the winter, and I'm very struck by the number of drains on the roadway that appear to be blocked as they filled up. And this has been going on for a number of years, so I'm not talking about just recently, but they never seem to get cleaned. It's a mundane question.
I would agree. So last year wasn't so bad. Last Christmas winter period, the year before, in my own village, which is Osmondton, pretty much every single drain was blocked, and I was getting phone calls. I was walking down to the Spookless pub 2 weekends ago, back on the weekend, outside Craig's Farm Dairy. If you know the area, there was a drain blocked. I reported it. We did the litter pick last month on Osmondton Hill, found another one blocked. What we are moving towards is going back towards preventative maintenance, because we've realised it actually saves money in the end. If you just go around, have a schedule and start clearing, and we have been doing that. So my own village has been done. I saw them out there and they've gone around every single drain, apart from the one.
When I was a child, they used to have a tanker used to come around.
It's a tanker and they suck the stuff out.
And they used to suck it out.
So we're moving back to preventative maintenance. And that's not the only thing we're moving back to preventative for, but the reality is budgets are tight. I was trying to avoid talking about budgets, but very briefly, Dorset Council is limited to 5% precept increase if the council tax increase. We can't go any higher. We'd have to go to a referendum. That's not going to happen. Some councils asked for more money, some of them got it, some said asked for 10, got 7.5. We didn't. But the reality is, the October statement from the Labour government took some grants away from us and imposed employers national insurance. Between those two things, they actually took away our 5% council tax increase before you even account for inflation and stuff like that. So we were already having to cut stuff. We have cut some things, nothing particularly important. We haven't cut any major services. And the fact that we haven't had much noise means we probably did quite well because people haven't really noticed. We've managed to cover it, but the reality is that money is tight, and we don't think that the settlement, which were promised to be 3 years, and it's due soon, next month, in June, I'm told, it's unlikely to make us any better off. In fact, we'll probably be worse off. And just as a final point on that, we're unusual in terms of how councils raise money. Dorset Council raises about 82% of its budget through council tax, which is on the outlier scale. The average is just under 50, I think, for councils across England. Which means, so we get penalised for that because every 1% raises more money. So government are taking money away from us, which means that even more of our income is council tax, bizarrely. Of our budget, of the 82% of our budget is council tax, and around about 70+% of our budget is adult and children's social care, and all the stuff wrapped around it, like home to school transport and all that stuff. So the reality is we are a care organisation, and most of that is demand led, and we can't do anything about it. That's the reality.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Councillor Birds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned in your talk that you were trying to get people to stop calling it the council, but you didn't tell me what the alternative is. What do you want people to call it?
I would rather they just don't use the phrase Dorset Council. They would just go, I contacted Dorset Council and they solved my problem immediately. Or, that's the thing. And the town clerk here will probably have complaints about Dorset Council. Everywhere I go, we get complaints from We've asked to do this. There's a bit of property you own. We'd like to run it ourselves. We'd like to run the toilets ourselves. That sort of thing. As a council, we're quite keen for that to happen because I'm being honest, it saves us money. If you can do it cheaper and better than us, fine, have it. That's my view.
But you still call it the council, which you've just done. And I can't think what...
I will think about that and come up with a fluffy name, maybe and rebrand ourselves. Unfortunately, we can't change the name Dorset Council, but it's.
Well, what's wrong with Dorset Council? Surely you won't change that.
No, but it's the prerogative of the council used in a not nice way.
That council.
That council, the council.
Council Wheeler.
Yeah, so thank you for coming here this evening. You've mentioned about noticing the amount of building that we've got around Wimborne, and the phrase was a bit thrown away, which is, it looks like you're running out of space. We do have some green space, and can you give us assurances that, given the right objections that we would put forward, that that we can preserve the green space that separates us from places like Colwyn?
I honestly can't, and shame to tell me I can't, because it's a planning process, and it's constitutional, as you know. I've sat on the planning committee for 5 years. I sort of miss it, to be honest, but in the end, government set targets, government set national planning rules. There's now the intermediate bit between what's green space and what's brownfield, and what is green space, because they've sort of redefined green space. I agree with you that we need to preserve green space just because of nature, but we have to follow what government tell us. And the reality is, and it's happened in the past, that if something goes to committee and councils get a bit of motive and go, well, we're not going to pass this, and the planning officers are going, well, actually, you need to, because you need to give us a decent reason, and that reason isn't planning law. But the councillors go, well, no, we're going to ignore you, we're going to refuse it, and then they sort of try and fudge up some response because the planning officers say you've got to come up with something. And what normally happens is that the planning officers go into a room and come back in 10 minutes later and try and give you something that you can refuse on. They'll go to the inspector, the inspector will go, fine, it's going through, we'll get up with a large bill. Then we also get a lecture from the Euro planning managers to say, we told you should have done that, and you did, you've cost us money, and it's difficult.
Yeah. So maybe something that is in your purview then. When building happens, how can you ensure that associated infrastructure goes with that building? So in Wimborne, for example, there were going to be retail units. I mean, the guns already gone off really in the Huxley, but there was going to be retail units. For example, at Courtjack Park, somehow it got turned into a care home, and now the people out there in the affordable houses have got to walk 2 miles to get to a retail outlet. So it's just, I mean, there's nothing we can do about it now.
Well, I don't know anything about
Courtjack Park with the building.
But I mentioned that there's a 500-home site in Crossways, which most people have accepted will be built at some point, and part of that is a community hub, pharmacy, new doctor surgery, all that sort of stuff, new village hall. So very quickly after they got outline planning permission, they had a powwow. The developers had a powwow with the CCG, as it was now maybe just Dorset, and then came back to take the new GP surgery out on the basis that the CCG say we don't need it, and we're all going, really? The residents think they need to do surgery, but the reality is, if the authority, the relevant authority, which in this case is what is now NHS Dorset, go, we don't need to do doctor surgery, planning officers have to go, well, fair enough, because it's the same with the incinerator in Portland. If the Environment Agency say it's not unsafe, it's not for us as councillors. We can challenge it. We say it's wrong when we think it's wrong, but we can't go, you're actually wrong, because planning officers have to follow the advice of the statutory bodies. So, and since then they've come back again to try and take away the village hall. Essentially, we've managed to resist that. We've managed to move it in the face, but the reality is they'll probably try to do it again. So they sign agreements, but then there's nothing stopping them coming back and changing it. And
yeah, as part of our values, though, it's still right that we challenge it.
Absolutely. And I am as a councillor.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes, a question about adult social care costs, which obviously are incredibly high. I mean, we know one of the reasons for that is that a lot of people come down to lovely rural Dorset to retire, having paid loads of money into a tax system wherever they might have been based previously, and yet it's the residents of Dorset that have to stump up the cost for all of that social care. Now, it's always struck me that this is obviously a cost that should be borne by central government, and the funds should be held there. So what can we do as a Dorset council in order to?
We lobby government through, you know, ourselves, and we lobby through our MPs, and you know, there's going to be the Labour are running a new inquiry Royal Commission, isn't it? In fact, so but they're not going to report till 2028. They're probably going to come back with exactly the same results as every other previous one is, that it should be nationally funded. You know, it's not for you know, the reality. You probably know the statistics, but you've got 29–30% of our population is over 65 already, and you know, it's not going to go any. It's going up. You know, the national average is about 19%. If Dorset County was a country, we'd be the oldest country in the world. The average age would be older than Japan. Yeah, people move here because it's a nice place to live, and you know, it's good that they move here. I guess you know they're allowed, they can. You can't stop them, you know, and many of them contribute to society. But then they get to the point where they can't because you get older and
that's perfectly fine. We all understand the progression of these things, but I mean it's a fundamentally daft system.
Absolutely.
As it currently stands.
Liberal Democrat policy, I'm trying not to be political, but you know, our national policy is that it should be funded centrally.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely ridiculous.
The reality is it's going to report in 2028. Are Labour going to do something radical then? Because the bottom line is, to do something like that means we all need to pay a bit more tax. You know, and most countries in Europe, I don't know about anywhere else, but you know, America they don't, but you know, pay more tax than we do. And that's the reality. And you know, if you want something, you need to pay for it. And Labour government for the year before election, are they going to do that? No, not a chance.
Okay, thank you. So just on a positive note,
well, first of all, in Wimborne, as I'm sure you know, we've got some unusual constraints. We've got a river, the border with BCP, we've got bridges, we've got historic layout of the town. East Dorset, back in 2011, did a traffic modelling project alongside their proposed building. And most of the proposed building has pretty much stuck to that. The end result is that I perceive really that individual building projects don't take into account such complexities as limitations of historic bridges. The entire network of the town is something that has to be considered. Now, I appreciate you're constrained by the MPPF and lots of other things, but at that time, in 2011, the traffic modelling project predicted junctions operating at 80, 90 and 100% capacity around the town. And since then, we've had the unfortunate addition of BCP 650 homes within a kilometre. But all that's contrived to give us a 57–60% increase on what was originally planned, the results of which gave a 90–100% handling capacity problem at the junctions. So I don't know there's a way out of that because projects seem to be looked and constrained.
I agree.
You know, on their own.
I think it's a perennial problem is that the cumulative effect doesn't get considered, and that's in my view. And I'm looking at Shane, but it is what it is, and the reality. I think if you want to get some decent infrastructure, you actually need a new town. Then arguably that's maybe what we should be building in Dorset. But to build a new town, somebody's going to oppose it, no matter where you put it. But if you build a new town, you have to build the infrastructure first, because how else are you going to live there? So you have to build the roads, and you have to build and finish them. Like some other housing estates you can mention, and build the surgeries and build all that sort of stuff, because people need facilities. Tacking on stuff to towns, you're not unique. When Dorchester's got potentially 4,000 homes north of it, which they're all up in arms about, and there's going to be expansion elsewhere. Some of them are not surprised, some of them will be, but a lot of them are out there. But my own, so Crossways is one of the, I think it's the second largest village in Dorset. I think Old Holt might be bigger, but you could see Crossways doubling in size, and that's not a secret, because the owners of the land have put those bits of the land forward already, and historically, and will that, you could argue that if you're going to approve a planning application for 2,000 houses, you probably will get some infrastructure because it's that scale that you can impose it. But the 49 homes that are built up that's currently about finishing, the reason there's 49 homes is because there was a threshold of 50 and they deliberately kept under that threshold. And that's what developers do because they don't want to spend money. They want to make money, but they don't want to spend it.
Okay, just finally, Tom, on a positive note, I noticed that you've just got an outstanding rating for your children's service.
We have. We're very, very proud of that. There was 4 categories. We were outstanding in 3, good in 1, outstanding overall, which is an increase from good. Yeah. Well, I think we've been fortunate for almost from the start of Dorset Council to have a very good Director of Children's Services. She's now left us, Teresa Levy was her name, and her successor, who was one of her deputies, has carried on that. It's great. You don't have to keep it there. It's a challenge, obviously.
But it's very rare, isn't it?
It is, and our adults is classed as good. And we're due a CQC inspection for adults soon. Apparently, they make the phone call on the first Monday of the month. So the director, the DAS, the Director of Adult Social Care, is probably sitting there every Monday waiting for that phone call. It's going to happen sooner because they've already done lots of around the area. I was speaking to Steve Robinson, who's our cabinet member for adults this afternoon, and he's confident we can maintain good. He'd like to think we can make outstanding, whether we will. It's quite difficult to make outstanding, which is why Children's Services has improved so much, and it's great. And we should mention BCP as well, because they were in a fairly bad place for children's, and they've just got good. So things are looking up, and that's because we talk to each other and best practice and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, well, thanks very much for coming. Should we show our appreciation to
My intention is to come back in 6 months' time. Ideally, there's no members of the public here anyway, but I've been spending an hour generally with people, but you know where I am, and you've got Dorset councillors sitting around the table, and so, yeah.
Thanks very much.
And I will leave, because whoever's going to be mayor, well done, congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the annual meeting. Do you want to just say a word, please, what that means?
So, legally, we have to meet annually to approve a certain amount of things, and that's why the agenda is top-heavy and bureaucracy, I'm afraid. So, the first item of business is always the election of the chairman, who's also in our town, the town mayor, and then the election of the deputy. We have to appoint our representatives to our outside bodies, we have to look at asking a delegation, we have to approve our allowances, we have to review our general power of competency, we review all our governance documents in terms of policies and procedures, we agree a calendar of meetings, we approve our inventory of our land, we confirm we've got our insurance to cover our risks, and we look at our subscriptions and our bank signatories. It's set through the audit regulations and the Local Government Act. So I'm afraid it is quite boring, and I apologise, but we have to do it.
Okay, well, that's clear. Okay, so item 2 is the election of the town mayor. Have we got any nominations to be town mayor next year?
The clerk has got nominations, haven't you?
Yeah, so I've proposed Councillor Hart to continue as mayor, as we've had mayors on following years, as you see Councillor Hampton up there, Councillor Oliver in the past. Going into the town of culture, just feel that a period of stability would be good, and I think building on the good work that you've done so far, I'd like to propose Councillor Hart to be the chair.
Anyone want to second that? Councillor Sandy, thank you. Will you take a vote? Or any other nominations?
Yes, are there any
Any other nominations? Okay, so take a vote. So all those in favour? Thank you very much. All those against? All those abstaining? One abstention.
Thank you.
Okay, the election, thanks very much everyone.
Thank you.
Can I just ask,
Yeah,
before we
Roberts.
start, do we have to have a deputy?
Town clerk.
You don't have to have deputies on your committees, but it's good practice in case they're not here, so that the
Yeah.
vice or the
Okay,
deputy stand
I
in.
just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, any nominations for deputy mayor? Councillor Nash.
I'd very much like to propose that, again, with the theme of continuation and a very steady and very competent hand at the wheel, I'd like to propose Simon Wheeler.
Anybody want to second that? Yes, Councillor Sandy again, and Councillor Clinton, Councillor Sandy, and any other nominations? No? Okay, shall we all vote whether you agree with Simon being deputy mayor? And those against? 2. Any abstentions? Okay, so congratulations. Thank you. You've got some notification. So item 4, apologies for absence. We've got apologies from Chris Brown. Anybody else?
Yeah, and Councillor David Trim and Councillor Ryan, Chris Ryan, all non-business related.
So I'll propose that we accept those apologies. Councillor Wilson, second. All those in favour? Okay, declarations of interest. Councillor Bartlett wants to say a bit.
My usual Dorset Council one, please, Chairman.
Sorry?
My usual Dorset Council one, please, Chairman.
Then appointment of representatives to outside bodies. But these are things like the Twinning Association, Planning Wimborne, Citizen Advice. And I think, are you going to say a word, Town Clerk?
So I've quoted a list. I'll just put it up on the, there we go. So I put a column for who was last year up to today, and then I open it up to see if people want to carry on or step back and allow others to have a go at something, or if anyone's keen to do anything. I don't know if we want to go, should we start with the Allendale Centre and go through them?
Yes, can you, I can't read that.
That's me.
I'm interested in your, actually, I noticed that I'm a representative on the Citizens Advice. But they didn't invite me to the function today.
Is there a function?
So,
So start at the top.
Councillor Nash is the current rep. Are you happy to carry on?
I'm very happy to carry on if no one else wants to take it over. It's incredibly valuable.
Next.
The next is Citizens Advice. We have 2 on that usually, and Councillor Burt and Councillor Sandy.
Do they want to continue?
Does anybody else fancy it?
I'm happy to continue.
Councillor Burt, are you happy to continue?
Yes, I don't think have you attended a meeting?
Yes,
Oh,
they do
that's
send
one
out.
up on me then.
Well, I'll make sure I tell you about them. They send out emails, but
Well, I don't
that one's
think,
every 3 months, not very
I don't
often.
think I've been getting the emails, Mr. Chairman.
So do you want to carry on being the
Yes,
representative?
I'll carry on.
You will, okay. Next.
The next is the Dorset Association of Parish and Town Councils. We always have 2 representatives on this. Currently it's the town mayor, just because it's good practice, and it was Councillor Bartlett, and I don't know, I would always recommend that the current town mayor is always a representative, and there's a second, a backup.
Councillor Bartlett, what do you think?
I wish to continue.
Sorry? Do you
I
want
wish to continue.
Okay.
I think I don't want to sound challenging, but it'd be good to give someone else the chance that wasn't a ward member.
Could it take 3 people? Is that an option?
I can check.
Anybody else interested?
Marginally, I'd have to look into what's required first, but
You're marginally,
it
okay.
could be, yeah.
So we're looking for that, yeah?
I'll ask them, yeah.
Okay, next.
Green Boats, one of the umbrella organisations under Vision Wimborne, is that correct? Vision Wimborne?
Two separate.
Okay, so Councillor Bartlett was the rep on that.
And we should continue with that as well.
Division Wimborne still going?
Decision hasn't been made yet.
Okay.
The next one is the East Dorset Environment Partnership, which, to be honest, is a bit of a mystery to me, and Councillor Wheeler is the rep on that.
I haven't been to anything, but I'm happy to continue and try and get that connection going.
Good. Next.
The next one is the Fair Trade Steering Group, and Councillor Nash was on that.
I've very much enjoyed that. I'd love to continue, but again, if anyone else wants to jump
Anybody
in.
else want to have a go at fair trade? I think you did a great job there. Councillor Nash should stay. Next.
Planet Wimborne, it was Councillor Hector.
You happy to continue?
As it stands at the moment, I would be happy to step back if anyone else wishes to get involved, purely from the workload on my plate at the moment. Being a bit more established now as councillor, there's some big projects that I do have to focus on, and so I would open it up if anyone does want to jump in.
Does anyone want to jump into Planet Wimborne? Come on, somebody.
I loosely attend it anyway as a Dorset councillor, so I can fulfil both.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Councillor Barker.
Thank you.
And then we have St Mark's as their charity, which I believe is ceasing next year, and currently Anne's the rep on that, Councillor
I
Roberts.
think it's further on than that. I don't think it is actually 2026. I think it's a period of 4 years.
Right.
It's only twice a year, and
Yeah.
I quite enjoy going because it's only just up the road.
That's great, so if you continue, Councillor Roberts. Yeah.
Then we have the town liaison group, which is usually the town mayor. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Twinning Association currently for Valons is currently Councillor Sandy. Valon.
You're happy to continue, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then the Twinning Association for Oxenford, Councillor Roberts.
There is a bit of a problem with this because membership is difficult. Everyone on there is as old as me or not older. It's a long way to go, but we are still keeping up, what shall I say, a friendship with Oxenford. But as regards to events, it's a non-starter. We've got an ex-chairman with dementia and other problems, so and I didn't think I was the representative because I'm the chairman anyway.
Does anybody else interested in the German Twinning Association? Councillor Billington, volunteer. Is that all right, Councillor Roberts?
Well, we haven't had a meeting for a year, so it's not making any difference anyway, so it won't be too onerous.
Okay, good.
And then we've got Vision Wimborne, which was Councillor Bartlett.
You have to continue? Yeah.
And then we have Morford Mill Educational Trust, which was Councillor Brown.
I'm sure he wants to continue that. I'm sure he wants to continue that. Are we all agreed? Yeah.
And then we have Wimborne Bid, which was Councillor Morgan.
We have to continue.
Oh,
that.
yeah, I enjoy Wimborne Bid, yeah.
Anybody else want to have a shot on that?
And then we have Wimborne in Bloom, which was Councillor Roberts.
That's fine.
Stay with that, yeah, good. Anybody else want to have a go at that? No. Very few hands going up. Right.
It's smoother. And then we had the Wimborne Folk Festival, which was Councillor Chakalata.
Councillor Chakawati, are you okay to stay with that?
Yes, I do.
You like that? Yeah, good.
And then we have Wimborne Militia, which is the town mayor.
Right.
And we have the 1069 Squadron, which was Councillor Wheeler. which we might have tried to pass on to Councillor Sandy, but I'm not
I
sure
think
that's
we're both
happened.
doing it, aren't we?
We are, yeah, so you can put us both down.
And then to add to the list from last year, which got agreed at a previous council meeting, we now have a BCP liaison role, which was Councillor Jaggs.
Are you happy to continue
I am,
that?
yes.
Councillor Jones? Thank you. Really useful role.
That's it.
Okay.
And in terms of the specific roles, are we happy to carry on with the tree warden, flood warden, rights of way, community resilience and civil protection roles?
That's good.
Yeah, lovely. So, is everyone, can I have a proposal second just to agree on
I'm
those?
happy to propose more.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Jones. All those in favour? Yeah, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, item 7 is the scheme of delegation. To review and adopt the council scheme of delegation upon councillors on council standing committees, confer delegation arrangements in committees' terms of references. So one thing in here is the number on the different committees, and we're going at 8 with 5 for HR. And
Yes.
Is everyone happy with that?
I'll bring the document up because it's quite a heavy document. And the sections highlighted in yellow are the updated version for tonight's meeting based on so it shows any changes in highlighted yellow. We previously opened all our committees to all our councillors due to the elections to give everyone a chance to see how the committees work. But in this scheme of delegation, I've gone back to the previous agreed membership. So for finance and governance, it's 8. For rec and leisure and buildings, it's 8. For planning environment, it's 8. For calc, it's 8. And for HR, it's 5. I want to check if everyone's happy with that.
Yes, we are. Everyone happy? Yeah. Yeah.
So if everyone's happy, can I have a proposal for the scheme?
Okay.
Yeah, so I propose we accept it as is, yeah.
Proposing seconder, Councillor Nash. All those in favour?
Thank you.
In terms of members of the committees, is that all sorted?
No, it's all sorted, but that's I can go on to that membership now. So, not everyone got their preferred place because some committees are more popular than others, and there was a lot of first preferences for the popular committees. So, I prepared a second part to this document. If I just get it up now, I'll try and explain it. I mean, basically, to summarise, Councillor Hector didn't get her second preference for rec and leisure. Councillor Brown didn't get his second preference for rec and leisure or his third preference for the HR committee. And it's whether there's any appetite to have a quick move around to change the membership to accommodate people that are keen to go on one specific committee or not. And we are under by 1 on the Finance and Governance Committee.
Councillor Morgan.
I'll volunteer for that vacancy on finance and governance, as soon as I'm not on any others.
Aren't you on that one anyway? Isn't he?
I didn't put him down because he wasn't at the meeting.
No, right.
Yeah.
So that's good. Okay, and does anybody feel they want to change committees or any thoughts at all? Councillor Nash.
Just a thought more than anything, having discussed it a little bit a week ago, I did encourage all of the councillors to dig into maybe becoming chair of the committees rather than just sitting on them. Take the plunge.
You need to do that then.
Thinking about it. Seriously.
Councillor Bennington.
I'd be happy to come off rec and leisure and give that up to Councillor Hector if she has a particular hankering for it.
Sorry, Karen.
And which one would you be coming off, sorry?
Rec and leisure.
Would you swap with me to?
No, just come off it.
Oh, I would accept that if possible.
You would?
I would, yeah, thank you.
Good.
Can I ask through you,
Councillor Bird.
Chairman, did I get the committee I put down for?
Yes. Yeah, because some councillors only put one preference rather than 3 or 5. So yes, you did.
Okay, any other ideas? Councillor Chakawati.
Thank you, Chair. I think I would be willing, if the deputy chair is, whenever is ready to step down from the chair, I'll be happy to chair the HR committee, whenever it's ready, as part of some of our discussions last week.
Would you say the chairs when our first meeting?
Yeah, when we have our first meeting, we agree the chairman and vice chairman.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Gopher. Okay,
Proposal seconded for that
So-
committee, please.
proposer, Councillor Chakawati, seconder, Councillor Billington, all in favour? Yeah, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8 is the town mayors and council allowances from 1st of April 2025, 3rd of March 2026. Currently, the town mayor's allowance is 2,200 and nobody else gets an allowance. So sorry about that. Anyone got to question that or comment? No.
So for the purposes of the meeting, I'm looking for a proposal to accept that, I know we've already agreed the budget, so it's in there, but we just have to formally approve that we have the town mayor's allowance and the councillors don't get an allowance.
Councillor Nash, your proposal. Councillor Chakawati is seconding, and all those in favour?
Question.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Roberts.
As I understand it, the mayor's allowance is the highest in the county. Is that correct?
Have you done some research?
Yeah.
All right.
I haven't done that research, so I can't comment.
Okay.
Councillor Bartlett.
Some years ago, it was, I forget the body they brought in to have a look at it, to check and assess as to whether we were in alignment, and we were in alignment. And in actual fact, it was raised to bring us into alignment.
Right.
So it has been through a due process in the past, and it hasn't been increased to any exorbitant amount. And historically, as a town council, we've never taken individual allowances.
Yeah. Thanks, that's very helpful. Councillor Nash.
Yes, this was mooted before we had this conversation a while back. Because we don't have expenses as councillors, the mayor's allowance basically compensates for that with the lack of that sort of thing. But I think I seem to remember it being the highest in, I think it was, Dorset.
Okay, do you have a proposal to accept those allowances? Councillor Nash, secondly Councillor Billington, all those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? No. Okay. General powers of competence in section 137 Local Government Act 1972. So I think the town clerk's going to just explain this.
So after our elections last year, because we didn't have a 2/3 of councillors elected, we reverted to section 137, which meant we had to make sure that any expenditure we spent was linked to a statutory enabling legal status. Now we are back to 2/3 of an elected council. We can now use a general power of competency, which basically means that we're allowed to do what any individual person can do as long as it's not illegal. So I've put on here that the town clerk is qualified in terms of Silverton Community Governance Foundation degree, and that 2/3 of us, the councillors, were elected. And as a result, I'm looking for someone to propose that we are adopting a general power of competence for this municipal year.
Councillor Morgan's proposed, seconded Councillor Wheeler. All those in favour? Yes. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Abstention from Councillor Bartlett. Okay. All right.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Item 10 is the governance review. Look at all those policies and documents. What I propose is that all the policies in 10.1, 10.2, that we accept those policies, but we review them throughout the year. So that at any time we can review them. Councillor Bartlett.
Yeah, I want some specific wording around that. It needs to be tighter than that, so we need some specific wording to vote on around that. Because it was a massive vote on block, which I doubt any of us have had the time to read through all of them, and therefore the ability to go back and look at them through the course of the year, which I don't disagree with, but we need to make sure we've got a tight piece of wording around that we're voting on.
Okay, Councillor Nash.
Can I propose that we send that to the Finance and Governance Committee and ask them for the wording? So I think the thing I would like to do in Finance and Governance is have a much better defined procedure for doing this.
Town clerks, good idea.
It is a good idea. Can I suggest that there's a proposal from tonight's meeting that we adopt all the listed policies and procedures, but that they are referred to the Finance and Governance Committee for a defined process to be agreed on how we review them in time for the annual meeting next year.
Happy with that? Yeah.
You want to propose that?
I can propose that.
And second that? Councillor Bird, all those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions. Thank you. Okay, item 11, calendar of meetings from 13th of May to May 2026. So, the item to discuss here is that people who are working, who have started creeping in these meetings at 6:15, and it's very difficult for them to attend. So we could change it, and what we could do is say that in fact the meetings start at 7, and then let's say 8:15 we have a working group meeting or a second meeting. Councillor Nash, do you want to say what?
Yes, I'd love to, thank you. Specific to me, I find it a real struggle to get home for 6:15. I work in Hamble, the other side of Southampton. I finish at 5:30, it takes an hour to get home. I'm happy from 6:30. I don't want to push these things much later than we need to, and I understand the need for officers to be, well not the need, but the desire for officers to be on the same day. Under the current structure, I wouldn't be able to attend any of the HR meetings. So there are issues here, you know. Obviously it's just me, I'm sure there's other people that have similar problems, but for me 6:30 onwards would be great. 6:15 is just a bridge too far.
Okay, any other? Councillor Roberts.
As I can recall, all meetings were to be at 7 o'clock. We had a lot of argy-bargy about meetings because it meant that people at work cannot get here. Members of the public who work cannot get here. There have been too many meetings coming up early or during the day, and I think we ought to stick to 7 o'clock for all meetings unless it's an emergency.
Okay, that's good for you. Councillor Hector.
Yeah, I have the same issue there with the 6 o'clock meeting for the Climate Action Working Group. So do they have to be an hour in length? Because this one is placed before planning and environment, so it's proposed to start at 6. 6:30 would be okay. I don't know if it's possible to maybe look at a joint agenda for the working groups, so it can still start at 7, or whether it does have to be an entirely separate meeting.
Right. Okay. Town clerk.
So, your decision whatever time you want to start, but where there is duplication, because we have historically met on a Tuesday night, and the feedback last year, the year before, was everyone's still keen to keep Tuesday nights free for town council meetings. So where there's duplication, if you start at 7, the knock-on is effect that the second meeting will start a bit later, so the meetings might run on after 9 o'clock. So that's all you need to work out for yourselves, what you prefer.
Councillor Jacks.
I'm just wondering whether we could have, where there's a working group and a committee meeting as well, whether we could start at 6:30 and then start the committee meeting at 7:30 on those nights, and that would allow a slightly staggered start, but also allow that order to be maintained.
So what you're proposing is that 6:30, 7:30 would be for working groups, 7:30 would be for committee meetings, council meetings.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think if you were to say it's a hard 7 o'clock for council meetings, because it's right. As said, that the members of the public should have the opportunity to come to those meetings. The working groups or any additional working groups can't start before 6:30, and we'd have to let them time that.
Could we go for compromise and go 6:30 in working groups, 7:15 in the council meetings. Yeah, Councillor Roberts.
I thought it was in standing orders that it was 7 o'clock meeting. I thought we'd gone through it all and rectified it, and it was, because we used to have early meetings and people can't attend. And I thought we'd taken the vote that all meetings would be 7 o'clock.
My recollection, it's not all meetings, it's for full council and our standing committees. I can check that on the standing orders.
Okay.
So if there is a, sorry.
Could I possibly ask the chair to take just a quick show of hands, just out of interest, to see whether anyone would be happy to meet other days other than Tuesdays?
Okay, so raise your hand if you'd be happy to meet any other day or Tuesday. So it would be Monday or Wednesday or Thursday, realistically, wouldn't it? Want to raise your hand if you're happy to move from Tuesday? I don't know.
Our lives are revolving around Tuesday.
Good try there, Councillor. Councillor Wigan.
So if I may, I think if we were to move along the path of 7 o'clock for council meetings, and where you have to put in a working group or an emergency meeting, it's 6:30, and we would agree that meeting, the second or follow-on meeting, which would be the council meeting, could move 15 minutes if necessary to give that ability. I think that should accommodate more or less everything that's concerned in the room.
How do you feel about that?
When you send out a summons, an agenda, or as it's technically called under legislation, a summons for your full council and standing committee meetings, you have to put the start time down. So if you're going to start at 7:15, you have to start at 7:15.
So then, if there's an emergency meeting, it is either limited to half an hour, or when we send out the meetings, we need to know that meeting's going to occur and say it's going to start at 7:15. As long as we can manage that, then that seems to be the fairest way forward for everybody.
Well, why don't we, just thinking, why don't we go for 6:30 working parties and then 7:15 council meetings start to give us 45 minutes? Councillor, several hands up. Councillor Chucklewater.
Thank you, Chair. So I attend maybe 5 other parish meetings. They tend to be at 7 o'clock start. We don't have to do that, but it seems to be standard. But some of them, summertime, they start at 7:30, based on summertime, more than anything else. So, but I'm mindful if people are traveling and also sometimes people want to start at 7 o'clock so that we finish at 9 o'clock. They start at 7:30, 7:15, it's 2 hours later. So that needs to be considered.
Yeah.
We want to encourage more participation and activity.
Councillor Roberts.
Having chaired the last Rec and Leisure meeting after we had a previous one, we went on to 9:15, and I just think there are too many items at times on those particular committees to get through. It was, we get item 8 with 6 subtitles, and it just does, it's an awful lot to get through. And I can't say I approve of the new plan, because I had asked many times that we have a recreation and leisure committee every month, because we're getting more and more and more, because we've taken in buildings as well now. And it is not every month.
It is every month for
But the 6 weeks, yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Burke next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But I like the idea of knowing when the time is, and 7 o'clock start. I think is absolutely fine, and we know that. My question, is it necessary to have 2 meetings on the same evening, and that you have to rush through the first one to make sure it's done in time for the second one?
That's a very good
Why
point.
is that? Why is it that our town clerk will probably wish to?
So unfortunately, on average, there's 4 Tuesdays in a month, and we are a very busy council. You have the standing committees, we have planning environment needs to decide whether it wants to go for option 1 or option 2 to meet every 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And we have a lot of working groups, as you can see. The working groups are we're very busy. So, on average, we don't have enough Tuesdays in the month for all our meetings that are needed.
Well then, if we haven't got enough Tuesdays, then I can understand the logistics of that. Why can't working groups be perhaps a Thursday evening? Or is that going to cause more problems?
Possibly might. What do people think? Councillor Billington.
Do you know if it's possible for the working groups on the first meeting after this meeting to decide whether they would be able to meet on a different evening?
Yes. 10 o'clock.
I think full council need to decide.
Okay.
Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't going to resolve itself if we only limit ourselves to Tuesdays. So I think we probably have to ultimately bite the bullet and say, do you know what, committees, full council, they're Tuesday, working groups are a Thursday. And I don't see, or whatever day it might be, but I don't see any other way around that other than, and as Councillor Roberts correctly points out, when you start having 3 hours of meetings in an evening, and some people would have been at work, sorry, but people cannot engage for as long as that. So I absolutely agree with Councillor Roberts on this one. We've got to find a different solution than stacking meetings on one evening.
Councillor Bartlett.
Yeah, the continuity of all the meetings at 7 o'clock is, to my mind, it works and it's simple for the public to understand as well, should they wish to attend. If we're going to put working groups in beforehand and the 6:30 start for a working group to then give you a safe space to be able to start the council meeting at 7:30, because as the officers rightly said, there is a summons to it and it cannot start until that specific time. And I think it should just remain on the Tuesdays doing the two, 6:30, 7:30 if there's 2 meetings on the night. Other than that, they start at 7 o'clock. I think moving committee meetings to other times, other days in the week, impacts on our officers who've got a life as well. They've already done a day in the office anyway, to then work through the evening as well, I think is unreasonable to ask them to accommodate that. So I think that the task and finish group meetings, whatever, should be at 6:30. The summons to the meeting is at 7:30. If they're still on the same night, other than that, the summons to the meetings would be at 7 o'clock. And for me, that's as it should be.
Do you want to make a proposal?
It is a proposal, yeah.
Okay, then on to second motion. Yes, Councillor Wheeler. All those in favour?
Can I explain? Thank you very much. Lovely solution. Can I explain basically planning environment? What's your preferred option?
3 weeks or 4 weeks? Right.
Yes.
Councillor Wheeler.
I haven't put my hand up.
No, but you are.
Councillor Nash has got his hand up.
Councillor Nash, yes.
He keeps doing it. I believe Mr. Morgan had his hand up before you.
I'm not on the committee, so I can probably say what I like. But I don't like, in principle, the idea of retrospective email agreements. But it doesn't affect me, so I've got no skin in the game here. But I think it's desirable to do the 3 weeks and get everything done in the meeting rather than doing retrospective.
Okay, Councillor Nash.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. I find retrospective agreements get left by the wayside quite often.
Yeah.
I'm going to be out every Tuesday anyway, so I'm quite happy.
We didn't do that, did we?
Yeah, please.
I'll propose it. I'll propose it. We'll go for 3 weeks.
Councillor seconding all those every 3 weeks? Yes. Anybody against? No abstentions? No. Okay.
And is everyone happy? So Rec and Leisure are down for every month except August, try to keep August clear for the majority of meetings, except planning and town and culture. And I've put in brackets a December meeting, if you need it, if we don't, we don't. And the rest of them, HR, as and when we need them, probably twice a year. And community events is still being built around the busy times of the year when our events come up. And in general, there's meetings around the budget time, the budget setting process, September, October, November into December. So So that's the idea behind the timetable.
Good, yeah, that's fine. Councillor Morgan?
I'm looking at a long list of documents which need to go through governance at some juncture. And I'm wondering whether we do need to consider an additional meeting for finance and governance to assist with spreading the load of going through those documents.
Town clerk?
I could name a month you'd like to add it in. Not August, please.
No, I'm looking at July, I think.
From an officer's point of view, we start prepping the governance documents from December onwards. So my preference would be either add it in January or March.
Aye.
Fine with either of those.
I don't think that the review of the documents will be happening in the meetings, so I don't see that an extra meeting would be useful for that.
My thinking is that, I mean, if we can sign everything off over a portal and everybody agrees, fine. But if there's lots of comments, then they have to be discussed in the meeting, would be my view. And therefore, I think we should give ourselves headroom to do that.
Should we put a meeting in and then if we need it, use it? Town clerk?
Full council and committees always have the option of asking for an additional meeting. So not an extraordinary meeting, which the chairman calls, but an additional meeting. So if the Finance and Governance Committee agrees a way to review the policies, for example, we use a portal and everyone dips in and sees what they think. If by March, or January or March, you think it's not working, at the meeting before that, you can say, we're going to have an extra meeting. It's not a problem. So we can either put it in now, or you can leave it till the end of the time.
Okay, that seems a good solution.
Happy with that as a compromise, yeah.
Okay, so do we need to just vote on these?
Yeah, please, if we can just agree with what we've agreed to propose that we accept the calendar.
Chairman, just one comment on the sports and leisure forum. It's the first Monday in every month, not the last.
First Monday in every month.
Right.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Anyone want to propose that we accept the calendar? Councillor Nash? Yes. Councillor Jackson is seconding. All those in favour? Everybody? Okay, on to item 12. Inventory, land and assets. A review of the inventory of land and other assets, including buildings and office equipment. The only change from last time is that where is it, their ordinance?
So I have to apologise, it's just land. I don't know why I put other assets, including buildings and office equipment. It's basically to show what land we use, and it's for this meeting. And the only addition is the Parliamentary allotments.
So would someone like to propose we accept that document? Councillor Benton and the seconder, Councillor Morgan, and all those in favour? Yes, good. Insurance, confirmation of arrangements for insurance cover in respect of all insurable risks. Do you want to say a word about that?
So as you're aware, the Finance and Governance Committee did a review of our insurance cover, and we proposed that we go with a new insurance provider, reviewed all our insurance cover, and we have a new insurance schedule. This meeting tonight just needs to propose and resolve that we have reviewed our risks in terms of insurance cover.
Okay, proposer?
I'll propose that. I was there when it was done.
So second by Councillor Nash, all those in favour? Against? No, all those in favour. 14, subscriptions, to review the council's staff subscriptions to other bodies, appendix 5. Any comments?
There are two new ones to the list compared to last year. I've added the National Allotment Society and there's one more. Where is it? There's another one. The Purple Guide. The Purple Guide.
So,
We don't have to add them, but it's up to you.
So I'll propose we accept those. The second one? Councillor Wheeler, all those in favour?
Are we are we voting, Mr Chairman, on the whole of the list?
Yes.
Yes. So,
That's
to the
okay.
proposal, Councillor Bartlett.
I wasn't looking, I thought we were voting for it.
Alright, should we all vote now? Thank you very much. Anybody against, abstentions? Okay, bank signatories, to confirm the town council's bank signatories, and I think all councillors are bank signatories, is that right?
Yeah, I'm just going to pull out something very prepared for me. Our financial regulations state that all councillors are on our bank signatory mandate with Unity Trust Bank. I know that there's probably a few councillors still left that have difficulties logging in and getting onto the system, and I think Jenny is trying to resolve that individually with councillors. We will be sending out a timetable for councillors to authorise payments, probably on a 4-week basis, so it's shared out evenly. So that is the aim of us all being on all the councillors being on the signatories.
I would say, because I do it a lot, it's very, very easy. Just click away. All the money.
So if everyone's happy with that and in agreement with the financial regulations, I'm looking for proposal that everyone's on there.
Proposal,
No,
councillor?
I just wanted to say something.
Yes, yes.
I have to say I'm instinctively unhappy with authorising something I'm not familiar with. I know that may not be very convenient, but I just don't feel comfortable with it.
So my advice to all the councillors is look at all our invoices are scanned. It shows what the contractor's work has been for, or the subscription, or whatever the payment is for. If you're not sure, contact me or Jenny and we can explain it. The more you do, the more you get accustomed to the usual expenditure and income that takes place on a monthly basis for the town council, because it is usually a monthly basis or an annual one-off payment.
Is that okay, councillor Sandy?
It just takes up time, doesn't it?
As I say, it's very quick. Okay, any other comments?
Become familiar with.
Councillor Roberts.
Can I just say that I've always found Jenny very accommodating when I don't understand it, and she did say to me the other day that if I can't get online, come in and she will do it with me, which I am absolutely computer blind. It's no good, I just do not get on with it, so.
Okay. So, should I propose for this? Councillor Nash and a seconder. Councillor Chaffawata, all those in favour? And any against or abstentions? No? All good. So, item 17, Planning and Environment Committee response to planning application. This is about the Camford incinerator, and we submit a response to planning application. We're recommending this, but we need to just get your agreement to send them the response. Do you want to say what about it, Councillor?
Yeah, so I tried to pull together everybody's comments into one coordinated response. It wasn't a blanket, we must not have an incinerator. It was more that we recognise that there is a need for an incinerator, and the latest data that we have, and the latest science we have, is that they are cleaner than they were 10 years ago, and certainly not as bad as some of the traffic we have going around the town. However, we strongly insist that it is sized for the local area, rather than us importing other people's waste. There are, whatever we do, there's going to be some people I know that are going to find that tough, and there's definitely a lobby to go the landfill route and continue going the landfill route. Whatever happens, we've got to reduce our waste. That's what we need to do. If we are looking at the incinerator route, the draft copy that I've put in front of you basically says that we just want it sized for us in the local area, not to import anybody else's waste.
Yeah, read this in detail. I think it hits absolutely all of the points. I think it's logical, it's well laid out. I'm all in favour of the letter as is. Yeah.
Good. Councillor Roberts.
Can I just comment, Chairman, that we have 2 bins now, plus a garden waste and the food bin. And my general bin, I've put it out this week, and I think we had about 7 items in it, because everything else is, it goes into the garden waste, or it goes into recycle, or it goes into food waste. And as I said, the general waste is, well, there's my husband and I know we have visitors and what have you. But, you know, we hardly have anything in our bin. The only thing we put in there is ashes.
I've liaised with constituents who represent Friends of the Earth and another, and further afield, a group that's specifically against incinerators on this topic, and everything that they raised in terms of why we should object to this is captured in this. I think it's a really nice piece of work.
Great. Mr. Jack, do you want to?
Yes, I attended the meeting that the BCP councillors put on at Hamworthy on Friday. Just one of the ideas that came from that meeting was whether there could be a planning condition put on the incinerator if it were to proceed, that it would only draw waste from a certain radius. Because that then addresses having to feed the beast later on from outside of our local area.
Thank you. Councillor Burt.
Thank you, Chairman. This question of waste is a bit of a problem, and it's ever been that way. And I go back to the times of Dorset County Council when we were in the process of trying to decide what to do. And we went on a trip to Germany and looked at what was going on there. We also went and looked at an incinerator up near Bristol, which specialised in doing clinical waste. Now that clinical waste came from all over the place. I don't think you can actually say that you will have an incinerator for Dorset and exclude BCP. I think if you're going to have an incinerator, you must be prepared, whether it's a certain area, but you must be prepared to allow stuff to come in that isn't necessarily from our own area. I can remember it now, the incinerator, I wish I could remember the name, it was up near Bristol, where the port is and the Portbury? No, I don't know. And it was amazing how that worked. There was a group of us, and it walked into the incinerator, and it was like walking into a council chamber or a member's room. It was, and there was no smell, because it had all been sorted out with the machinery that they had. So I think we need to go down the route of an incinerator.
Thank you.
So just for clarity, this is going to be built in BCP. What we're stating here is, we're not saying that it would be just for Dorset, BCP. We're saying a defined area, because the incinerator can be as clean as it likes, but the trucks that bring the stuff from Devon or the Midlands or Wales or wherever aren't clean, and that's why we wanted a defined area. So that's what's in the document.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so shall I propose?
I'll propose.
You're proposing, Councillor Morgan. You're seconding, Councillor Jacks. All those in favour?
Not sure what the proposal is, but anyway.
Anybody against? Any abstentions?
Just for clarification, sorry, the proposal is that the letter goes to the, in regard to the planning application as agreed by the Planning and Environment Committee. So it's the appendix document which is shown at their appendix 6.
So we send the letter?
Yes.
Okay, we've got to vote again. So all those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? Vote, Councillor Bye.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like it recorded in the minutes that I took no part in the debate or the voting.
Okay.
That's fine. Usual.
Okay, thank you. Item 18, public participation. Is there anything you want to say? You don't have to say anything? No.
Quite relieved by the
Okay, thank you.
We like to get
Item 19, correspondence to know the information brought to Council Legal Services. Town clerk's going to read something out.
So I received an email from the head of legal services, and the email's quite specific about what I'm allowed to read out. Once I read it out, if anybody has any queries or questions, I can refer them to the head of legal services to have a direct conversation with them, because it's out of my jurisdiction basically. I've just been asked to report. So there was an allegation from a complaint and a failure to register a disclosable pecuniary interest, that complaint was dismissed. A failure to register on another registrable interest, this complaint was informally resolved by way of an update on the register of interest and an apology to complainant, but not to either council.
Thank you. So I don't think we discussed this.
No, if anybody wants to find out more, I will refer you to Dorset Council basically.
Okay. Councillor Sandy.
Can I bring up a matter of any other business, just for information purposes for the council?
So we've finished this item. This is a different item.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it's not on the agenda.
We don't have any.
We don't have any.
So the reason why we don't have any of the business is because councillors are not prepared for any debate or discussion that takes place.
But
If
it's
it's
not really-
purely information sharing,
It is.
feel free to go for it, yeah.
It is pure information. I just noticed this morning that there had been an incident of what looks like fly tipping in the wreck. Okay, just up by the small path that goes up the side of the school. Somebody's dumped a whole load of rubbish in there.
You can report it if you cite it. There's a website on DC, and you can report it. Take a photograph with a grid reference. It's all there. It's really, really easy, very useful thing to use.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burke.
As the meeting's nearly over now, would you like to tell us what you thought of this afternoon's meeting or function at Allendale House?
Yes. I'll close the meeting.